That's perfect. There we go. Yeah. Oh, we're 25. Perfect. This works out really well. So we also, these meetings are recorded, and we have a Zoom, a YouTube channel where our meetings are held. First, they're on Zoom, and then they go to the YouTube channel. So welcome, everybody. I'd like to acknowledge the board members that we have present this evening. We have Ben Carr. We have Deborah Gusson, and Deborah is our vice president. We have John Affolter, who's our treasurer. And online, we have Jessica Anakar. Jessica is our corresponding secretary. And let's see. Jamila Stigall is our secretary, and she'll be taking the minutes of the meeting. And there we go. All right, this is fabulous. So next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Deborah will do that.
Thanks, Diane. Please join me in acknowledging the Coast Salish people. The land we occupy today is their ancestral land. For thousands of years, they lived on it, stewarding its resources with care and wisdom. Today, with gratitude, we acknowledge them and their elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognize that this land remains a vital part of their cultural sovereignty.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just briefly review the agenda. If you're on our mailing list, you would have gotten the agenda, but those of you who aren't on our mailing list, we have a speaker this evening. The sheriff's office will be here. The Washington State septic system rules are changing, and Megan Jackson is here to tell us about that. We have our new King County Council representative, Teresa Mosqueda, with us this evening. And we have an environmental agenda to discuss, and we won't vote on it tonight, but it's going to be introduced. We'll be talking about the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal. This is our annual meeting, so we have an annual report, and we're going to be talking about the post office and what's going to be happening with our holiday packages this year. Okay, so now I would like to see if next is the minutes from our last meeting. And those of you who are on our mailing list received the draft minutes, and I'm calling to see if there are any changes or corrections on our minutes from our last meeting. Hearing and seeing none, I will mark them as approved. And we have our guests this evening. We'd like to introduce the guests from off island. We have Sergeant Kirsten Whitaker, lead deputy for Vashon-Maury Island. He's with us this evening. We have Teresa Mosqueda, our newly elected District 8 representative to King County Council. I think Bongsto Domingo might be here. Let me just quickly check and see. Not here this evening, not yet. Okay. And so those are our guests for this evening. Is there anyone I've missed that's not in the community that's with us this evening? Okay. All right. So we're starting something new. We do just a little community happenings reminder of what's going on. We had a lot of fun with Halloween, and I'm going to share my screen and pull up where did I put that? I think I put it in preview. There it is. There we go. So let me put this down and do something. Pretty cool, huh? There were so many amazing amazing costumes and stuff at Halloween. This was just one of them. And we also, for community happenings, this is Native American Heritage Month. Let's see. Where did I put that? Sorry, I'm going to have to go look something up here quickly. Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. That's a good idea. Okay. Here it is. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to read this to you. This Native American Heritage Month is an opportunity to honor our nation's original inhabitants and their descendants. There is a committee Attorney General Bob Ferguson has announced today and back in October that there are 5 members of his office's Truth and Reconciliation Tribal Advisory Committee has been formed. The committee will study how Washington State can address the harms caused by the government's historical role in the shameful legacy of Indian boarding schools. Do you want to mention anything, Ben, about this? Do you know more about this?
So I work for the Attorney General's office. I don't work directly on this, but I have left a message to try to find out exactly when the sort of public meetings are, in case people want to get involved. I know it's been a topic close to the Attorney General's heart. I know there was he's been working on a number of fronts to sort of bring some justice to local tribes to try to right a lot of historical injustices. So I hope once we get those dates that we'll send those out in the sort of updates to the membership.
Thank you very much. So the first of its public listening sessions around the state will occur in January 2024. And 17 Indian boarding schools have been identified in Washington State. The other thing to mention in the community is the Turkey Trot. The Turkey Trot is going to begin at 9 a.m. on Thursday, November 23rd, in the parking lot between Island Queen and Voice of Vashon. So could you tell us about the Turkey Trot?
I'm not the only one that's done the Turkey Trot here, but yeah, I mean, it's fun and it supports the cross-country team for Vashon High School, and they had a pretty good year this year, so it'd be nice to give them some support. There's actually 2 more. Can I chime in? Sure. That I forgot about? The art studio tour is happening the first 2 weekends in December. Really awesome, and encourage people to get out and see what's out there and support our local artists. And the other thing that I learned about this week, there's going to be a fundraiser for the Seattle Indian Health Board at VCA this weekend. So there's more information about that online. You can go to VCA and look, but they're going to have an auction and there'll be updates and information about the treatment center at the event on, I think it's Sunday night. So would encourage folks to check that out if you're interested.
Great. Thank you, Deborah. I did not know about that. Okay, so next on the agenda, we have Sergeant Kirsten Whitaker. He's our lead deputy for Vashon-Maury Island. Sergeant Whitaker, are you with us this evening? Not yet. So he might be detained for some reason. If he shows up, please let me know so that we can have him speak. Okay, next on the agenda, we have Megan Jackson. Megan and she's here in person. She's with the Public Health Seattle and King County, and she's going to talk to us about proposed statewide changes to the septic systems, which many of us have, and we're very interested to hear what she has to say. So I've got
Awesome. Great. Well, while Diane is pulling that up, I'll introduce myself. Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Jackson, and I'm the Interim Assistant Division Director for Environmental Health. So I oversee all of our plumbing and gas piping, as well as septic system work in public health. So I've been working on septic related projects on Vashon Island since I first started with King County. So have really enjoyed getting to know this community a little bit better from the outside. And I am here this evening to talk to you all about some upcoming changes with our septic codes And we are giving you an advance notice about these changes because we are going to be very intentional about the process that we use to implement these and think about how we are regulating septic here in King County, and want to make sure that you all know about this and can provide input if you would like to. So today we can go to the next slide. There we go. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about septic systems. I'm sure that you all know a ton about them, so we'll breeze through that quickly and then talk about the state WAC rule changes that are coming, the process the state has gone through, and then the impact here in King County. So next slide, and I'm just going to breeze through all of these pretty quickly. So septic systems, you all know, is what we use to treat wastewater when there is no sewer connection available. And next slide. There we go. Perfect. Okay. And so here in Public Health Seattle and King County, we understand the role of septic systems to be twofold. One is to protect public health and make sure that people don't get sick, and then also to protect the environment. And so what's really important to understand is that septic systems rely on soil to treat wastewater. It's not just putting your wastewater into the ground to get rid of it, but we actually need to treat that wastewater to make sure that we're removing all of the pathogens that could cause illness. So we can go to the next slide. And in the past 10 to 15 years, there have been a lot of advancements in septic system technology. So in King County, it's actually quite unique that about half of our septic systems are in urban areas. So we are relying on these systems on small lots in areas where there's very dense development. And so we need to make sure that this treatment is actually at a very high level and is occurring consistently. So this slide shows some examples of some of the more advanced treatment that we can provide with septic. But the important thing to recognize with these is that while they allow for more development, they are also more complex and more likely to break. So it's very important that they are also routinely maintained. So the state, you can go to the next slide. The state has been working on revisions to the WAC that governs septic system regulations here in Washington. And the state code sets minimum standards for every county in the state. So from very rural counties like Asotin County, where there's very not dense development, to King County, where we have a lot of different things that we're dealing with. We have the urban areas, but then we also have Vashon Island, where there's shoreline properties and challenges that come with that as well. So in King County, we have our local code, which is in the King County Board of Health code that is approved through a rule and regulation that the Board of Health approves. And this code is slightly more restrictive than the state code because of those different challenges that we face here that not all counties across the state face. And while the state is revising their codes, we have 12 months after the new codes are adopted at the state level to make sure that our local codes meet those requirements and are at least as restrictive as the state codes. So that's not a lot of time to do everything that we need to do to incorporate those codes here at the local level. So that's why we're coming to you now to let you know that this is coming up soon. Next slide. So this slide shows a little bit of how the state has gone about implementing these new codes that they are proposing. So they started back in 2017 when they did a very thorough review of the existing codes, basically looking at what's working, what isn't working, what are new things that we have learned that we want to incorporate into our regulations. They also established an on-site rule revision committee that had very broad representation of the different parties who are impacted by septic. So community members, industry, developers, different people who have a really important role with implementing these codes. And that committee worked together over a 2-year process to develop proposed changes. And those changes were then presented at various meetings across the state, and feedback from those meetings was also incorporated into the proposals. And then after all of that had happened, unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic thwarted the state's plans, and they all got brought into responding to the pandemic, which we're very thankful for, but their process got put on hold. So this year, they are finally able to return to the code revision process, and they have been spending most of the year preparing these codes to submit to the State Board of Health. And in October, they briefed the Board of Health on their final proposed rules. So those are now available for public review and comment for a 90-day period. And in January, there will be a public hearing with the State Board of Health about those rules. That's kind of the last opportunity for the board to hear from the public, to hear from the State Department of Health about these changes. And then in February or March is when we're expecting those rules to be adopted. So that means that by February or March of 2025, we will have new codes here in King County as well. Next slide. So I'm going to go over the 6 big topics that are changing at the state level. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means for King County. And just to give you a quick summary at the beginning, the changes here at the local level are pretty minimal because we are already doing a lot of what the state is going to be requiring across the whole state. So the first one is that the state is going to propose to require property transfer inspections for all septic systems across the state. And this, they're giving some time to implement this, but in King County, we already require these inspections. We have a very, very detailed and thorough process for making sure these happen. So this is kind of an opportunity for us to review our existing processes, but we're not really expecting any major changes due to this. The second topic are minor repairs and repairs. So the state is trying to be very intentional at making sure that there is clarity around when a permit is necessary for a septic repair and when it is not. And so there's a whole list of repairs that are pretty small. So like one that is really easy to understand is if your tank lid is broken. So it's really easy to replace that lid. It's pretty much just something that could be considered maintenance to keep your septic system working well. So the state has clarified what those actions are and that there's no permit necessary for those types of repairs. And then they are also just adding a little bit of language to clarify that an unpermitted sewage discharge is a failing septic system. So that would need to be fixed. And then also just making sure that everyone is on the same page that we want to put the least expensive repair into the ground as possible. We don't want to be putting extra technology into the ground if that isn't necessary because it's complex and you have to maintain it and then there can be challenges down the road. So with these revisions, we are also consistent with these proposals that are coming forward from the state. So we have a policy that incorporates minor repairs where we don't require a permit for those repairs. So once again, no major changes with this. The third topic is remediation. So remediation is basically any strategy to fix a failing drain field where you are not replacing anything. You aren't putting any new hardware into the ground. So some of the ways that they do this is by putting water or air through the septic system to try to clear it out. And the state is allowing local health jurisdictions, counties, to create a remediation policy that basically specifies what types of remediation are you going to allow in your county. How are you going to make sure that they don't further harm the soil or the septic system? And what are the requirements going to be around that? So King County does have a remediation policy. We'll definitely review it and see if it needs to be updated. But this is another example where we don't expect major changes. Okay, next slide. Awesome. So we have 3 more changes. The first one here, increasing the minimum lot sizes, is one that will have an impact here in King County. So for new development only, this does not apply to existing lots, just new subdivisions. The minimum lot size for new subdivisions that are going to be served by septic system is increasing by anywhere between 500 and 1,000 square feet. This is primarily because of the stormwater treatment changes that are happening. So we are accustomed to using those large retention and detention ponds, but the new approach to treating stormwater is that it is generally treated on each individual lot with smaller French drains and other treatment options. And so we need more space on the property to have space for the septic and that stormwater system. So we will need to incorporate this into our county minimum lot sizes, but we aren't expecting that this will cause a big challenge because it is a relatively small increase in that minimum lot size. Yes. Yeah, I think I just have like 2 or 3 more slides. So let's hold it for the end. Yeah. So the next change is that there are new local management plan requirements. So the local management plan is something that the state requires all counties around the Puget Sound to have. And basically, it is a plan that specifies how we are going to make sure that septic systems that are in the ground continue to function well. So you all may be familiar with the marine recovery area, an area where we have identified that there's a high risk associated with septic systems not functioning well. And so we need to make sure that they are regularly inspected and continue to function as well as possible. So that's an example of one of the strategies that was identified in the local management plan. So we will need to update this and also incorporate considerations for some of the new challenges that the state is seeing. So those include sea level rise, as well as addressing potential septic contributions to nutrient pollution. So there will definitely be an evaluation of what this means for the county. There is a very good study that has been completed of where we expect sea level rise to occur in the next 30 to 50 years based on different predictions of climate change. So we have the building blocks that are needed to be able to do this well, but this will be a change that is coming up. And then the last one is a new requirement for approval procedures for the septic industry, the people who work on septic systems day in and day out. So these are pumpers, installers, and maintainers. King County does have a certification process, but we think that this is a really good opportunity to evaluate that process and to make sure that we are really protecting customers and that there is a good equal standard of service that is being provided by these professionals. Okay, next slide. So, those are the changes that are coming down from the state level. We are also going to take this opportunity to look at our local codes to see what changes are necessary, because it's been 15 years since we have updated the King County Board of Health Title 13. So there's a lot that has changed in the past 15 years. And we want to make sure that we're incorporating those into our codes. So here are some resources that you can reference if you would like. I believe that these slides will be sent out with the meeting notes. Is that true? Okay. Great. Okay. So you can attend the public hearing if you're interested, sign up for a newsletter where we will be sending out regular updates throughout the the year of 2024 on changes that we're anticipating and opportunities to hear more or to provide input. And we will most likely also reach out to Diane and make sure that we share with this group some of the high level information about the local changes that we're expecting as well. But we don't know what those are yet. So that will happen in the future. So that's all that I have. You had a question. So we'll start with you. And Diane, let me know if we're running over time.
Two questions. My name is Jenny Bell, former Commissioner, Water District 19. The new increased lot size requirement. Many people have drain field failure, and then they have to try to come up with new drain fields. Is that considered new development?
Okay, yeah, putting in a new drain field is not considered new development. It's just building or establishing a new lot, building a new house, or expanding your house.
Right. Second question. About a decade ago, I had agreement with the chief plumbing inspector that he would bring into alignment with all the West Coast states the not needed to get a permit for a very minimum level of grey water discharge, which is simply described as laundry to landscape. It was put in writing between us that it would be done, and it never was. I'd like to flag that in the meeting and here with you because I think it's under your jurisdiction. That would be of enormous benefit to us all. And it's so important that oversight is not just, is justified. And increased oversight, to me, needs to be very justifiable. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That definitely makes sense. I have not heard about the laundry to landscape gray water discharge. That is generally something that is determined at the state level, whether gray water discharges are allowed and what that can look like. So I'll look into it more and see what we can do.
It's definitely King County Chief Plumbing Inspector. That's where it sits for the sign off. So you'll find that that is definitely in your jurisdiction.
So I believe I heard this correctly. The county will adopt the rules perhaps in February, March or something like that. And then they will have 9 months to put them in play. They're not in play when they adopt them or
Yeah, so the state is going to adopt the rules in February or March. And then the county has 12 months after that to adopt them at the local level.
What's your sense of it'll be 12 months or 2 months?
I think it will be close to 12 months. Yeah.
And did you also say that stormwater is part of this?
Yeah, so these codes don't govern stormwater, but there are interplays here because it's water that's flowing across the surface and under the ground. So we are coordinated in our approach, but I don't have any authority over stormwater rules.
So if the stormwater doesn't impact septic, then that's a non-starter for this issue here. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does anyone on the Zoom call have any questions for Megan? Okay, not seeing any hands raised. So
I don't know how to raise my hand here, so I apologize.
Oh, well, go ahead, speak up.
Oh, hi. Yeah, this is Mark McKellar. I'm not as I tried to go through and read the CR 102 in my mind. My head spun around in circles. But you did mention that there's more. You have more restrictions in King County because of the waterfront exposures as compared to the minimum standards set by the state. So we do have, tighter guidelines. I guess the question is, there are roughly 15 other counties exposed to the similar conditions that we have. Is there any alignment that you have with these other counties as you address, these other issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do regularly have discussions with the other Puget Sound counties. So some of that is coordinated. We have a twice a year conversation with them where we are trying to coordinate what we're doing and how we're implementing these regulations. And then we also talk with them regularly to try to make sure that we are being as consistent as possible.
All right, thank you, Megan. Thank you very much. I look forward to hearing the latest when it happens and seeing what changes. I'm really glad that King County is already ahead of the game in many areas on this. Thank goodness. Okay. Good luck. Hey, good luck. Okay, so don't think Sergeant Kirsten is here yet. So we will move on to Teresa Mosqueda. Teresa, our newly elected District 8 representative to King County Council.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to join you tonight. I know I am still not officially at King County, but officially on my way, thanks in large part to Vashon-Maury Island. So thank you very much. Folks know that with the ballot mail-in system that we have, many of those ballots get mailed in and tabulated over the week, 2 weeks following. So very excited to see a 10-point lead now in this race and to have it officially be called by the city of the Seattle Times, I should say. But what was never in doubt was Vashon's support coming in at 62% on election night. So thank you. Thank you very much for the very generous support and really for meeting with me almost monthly throughout the entire year. It's been my privilege and honor to be able to get to know many of you and to learn some of the issues that are of most importance for somebody who is interested in representing King County Council, District 8, and very much representing Vashon-Maury Island. So now that I've had the chance to meet with you, we've gone through the election. It looks like it's going our way. We'll be certified next week. I just want to thank you again. It is my intent to be at these meetings, whether virtually or in person, every month. And if not in person, then definitely online and having a staff available as well. I want to thank you again for your overwhelming support, and really I've already received a number of invitations from folks from the island, and I want to make sure that you know my intent is to be there as much as possible in January and beyond. So thank you to folks from the affordable housing community, people who are working on environmental justice, for reaching out and asking me to already put items on my calendar. Very excited about that and looking forward to it. I'm going to continue to serve on Seattle City Council through the end of the year, and my first day on King County Council will be January 3rd. Looks like I have a full team that is ready to come on board, so looking forward to introducing you to the whole team as soon as that's also official, and making sure that we're out there in person as well. I want to also make sure that the second that I have my team, I'm going to send out to the council the list of the staff members and the categories that they're working on, so that you know who the specific person is on each item, whether it's environmental justice issues or housing or the water taxi. You let me know. We will have a person that you can reach out to directly. And of course, I am accessible as well, and will continue to be accessible throughout the rest of the year at Teresa at teamteresa.org. Teresa at teamteresa.org still comes directly to me, so I will try to field as many of those inquiries and requests for meetings in the future. And I would just really look forward to getting to know everybody that we haven't had the chance to meet with yet. I see a lot of familiar faces from folks that I saw in person on the islands, and also people that I've chatted with over the emails and talked to on the phone. So thank you for that. Debbie and Diane made a very generous offer. If I ever move to the island, I can become a voting member. So maybe one day now I could do that, right? So that's really exciting. So I will keep that in mind. And then two immediate things I just wanted to put on your radar. I know a lot of folks have asked me about like what is the opportunity for regulating more of the short-term rentals. We're doing research on that right now. So we're going to continue to do that as we head into the new year, and look forward to thinking through additional policy ideas with you as we come into this role for unincorporated areas, for Vashon-Maury Island, and for White Center. I think that it would be imperative for us to think through what those policy items are quickly. We know that there's like the World Cup, for example, coming soon. And so there's going to be a lot of interest in people turning their rentals into short-term rentals. And I want to make sure that there's constantly a place for people to have workers and a workforce for those small businesses, so that people are able to be successfully employing people and successfully employed year round. So looking forward to chatting with you about that. I know that's a big priority. The second thing is the stranger in Seattle on election night called and they said, what's some of the first things that you're going to do? And one of the two things that I told them was, it is my interest in figuring out how we can create enhanced frequency of the water taxi to Vashon-Maury Island, and how we can ensure that there is the small metro buses that are deployed to the island. I hear from my future colleagues in King County that might be an uphill battle, given some of the conversations that have already occurred around that topic in the past. I intend to make it a battle that I look forward to learning more about, but also know the importance of it from both an economic stability perspective and a housing security perspective, but also really for a health policy and access to adequate health services perspective. Really, the conversations that we've had about the concerns around the traditional ferry system, if I can continue to weigh in on that with the state partners, will do so. Obviously, we have a lot of friends who've supported my race from the state legislature, so I intend to keep those relationships up and support any effort I can at the state level. But now, wearing the King County Council hat, look forward to working more on more frequent and regular access on and off the island for all sorts of services, whether you're going to a medical appointment, trying to get back and forth for kiddos for school, or just wanting to come back and forth as a worker. Look forward to working with you on that. So again, thank you so much for your very generous support. And my first day at King County Council will be January 3rd. When they come back from recess, I will be there, and I'll have orientation all day on the 3rd and the 4th. Make sure to send you my list of staff members as soon as those are available before the holidays, so that we can immediately get to work. Thanks again for having me, and I look forward to coming out there again, and hope to be out there at least on a monthly basis, if not more.
Teresa, we do have a little time for questions since the Sheriff's Department isn't with us yet. So does anyone have any questions for her? Jeff does.
Hello, Teresa. This is Jeff Schnells. I have a brochure here that came from Joe McDermott, and in it he outlines about $400 million in human service spending, none of which I agree with. There isn't a single line item in here for road maintenance. And for your information, we haven't had proper road maintenance here on Vashon for well over 40 years. We used to get our roads chip sealed on a regular basis. You know what that is? Chip sealing? You've never heard of it? You've never seen it? Okay.
I have not.
Well, briefly, it's you use you have a tar truck that melts down the asphalt. It curtain coats the road, and then you roll gravel into it. You layer the roads. And this used to get done about every other year. They'd put a layer on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the roads, the thickness of the road would slowly grow over time, because it's not a real thick layer. It's only about a ½ inch thick at the most. But that's just, it used to be done on a regular basis. And our roads used to be free of any cracks or potholes. They were flat and smooth, didn't have any dips. We used to have very nice roads here on Vashon Island, but we don't have that anymore after 40 years of neglect. And in the meantime, back in 1990, Washington State put the foot passenger ferry to Vashon, which you now call the water taxi. And I believe somewhere in the early 2000s, Washington State wanted to discontinue the foot passenger ferry because it's a money loser. And then King County took over and called it the water taxi, and they just spend and spend and spend money on the water taxi. But there's no money there for road maintenance anymore. Like I say, that came to an end 40 years ago. Are you over 40?
Thank you for the question. I am 43.
43. Okay. You were born about 1980.
Exactly in 1980, July 4th to be exact. Yeah.
Okay. In 1980 is when I saw the very first Metro bus on Vashon Island.
Interesting. Yeah.
It was a bad omen. I did not like the sight of that bus. And I haven't liked the development ever since. You like to promote this water taxi. That really adds to the gentrification of the island and our affordability issues. That's why I was very opposed to it back in 1990. I didn't want that boat to come here.
Thank you,
So,
Jeff. Thank you
okay.
very much for your
So
comments.
anyway,
I
I
want to
would
need
like to
time
see
for other
some,
people.
road maintenance budget.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I will look
Thank you,
into
Jeff.
that and appreciate the history on that. I also think that what would be helpful, I think, from my perspective, is figuring out how we can ensure that there's a reliable and present workforce. If there's not the sufficient housing on the island, what I've heard from a lot of small businesses is we don't have a reliable way to get workers back and forth. You know, people are worried if they're going to pick up their kiddo on time from daycare, or you know, if they're going to be able to catch the ferry to get over for a work shift. If that's a small business support element that we can offer to the island, I think that's an economic stimulant. I think that that's an equalizer that we can offer to working families on the island. And I look forward to working on that and road maintenance. So I'll follow up on that, and I'll learn a little bit more about ways in which the policy may have changed and see what else can be done. Thank you for the background.
Justin Hirsch.
Thanks so much, council member. Thank you so much for attending, and congratulations on your victory. And we are so looking forward to having you in that office. Just wanted to offer an alternative perspective that I think you touched on just a second ago. We love the water taxi. The water taxi is essential to Vashon Island. We would have an extremely hard time without it. For all the reasons you just mentioned, it's absolutely crucial to workers getting to and from the island, not just those of us who live here on the island, right? But workers who come to Vashon and work during the day. It's essential to people getting to and from medical appointments and other incredibly important things in the city. It's also just, quite frankly, an important emergency lifeline when the state ferries are failing, as they have consistently been. And quite frankly, without the water taxi, we would be in so much worse shape just trying to exist on this muddy rock in the middle of Puget Sound. So thank you so much for your continued support of the water taxi, and we definitely want to see that thrive and grow. And when there's money to expand it, please consider expanding it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and good to see you again.
We have not much time left, so Jenny will be our last question.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, council member. Congratulations. And it's great to see you here tonight. I'm Jenny Johnson with Vashon Youth and Family Services. I'm here tonight with two of our board members, Ann Palmer and Carol Gertzel. And I would love to invite you to one of our VSSN meetings in 2024. So that's the Vashon Social Service Network. You might be familiar. We're 9 nonprofits on the island who offer social services to the community. We meet monthly to coordinate services and try to make the most of our limited resources here. If you would kindly drop your email, I kind of missed it in the chat. I will be sure to get you an invitation. January might be a little bit too soon for you as you're settling in, but maybe February. Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds great. I will drop my my campaign email into the chat again, and I'll continue to look at that. And as soon as one is available for King County, I'll let folks know that as well. And then the staff members that we have love to come out and do that. Thank you so much. Very much been a frequent supporter of like Southwest Youth and Family Services out here in North Delridge, and looking forward to learning more about the priorities from the organization. I also did see Kevin's hand up. I wanted to say hi to Kevin. And I know that last time I met with you at Luna Cafe, we were talking about the upcoming environmental policy report that's forthcoming. So looking forward to hearing if that's been released, and any of the ways that I can help wearing the new hat come the new year. So thank you all very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to see you and be part of the team here and officially on team Vashon-Maury when it comes to 2024. Thank you so much for all your support.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It has been wonderful to have you here so quickly.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is our environmental agenda with Kevin Jones. We have a proposed motion and discussion.
Thank you, Diane. The link that I just put in the chat is a link to what we're calling the addendum, which allows you to actually read along if you're on Zoom with the discussion that we're going to have here. Let's see, Diane, I'd be happy to share my slides, except for that that's not allowed right now on Zoom. So if you want to change that, I can share those slides. Meanwhile, let me find the information to walk through the discussion today.
You're co-host now, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, let me arrange that so that we have the right information on the screen, and I'll go into slideshow mode so people can see this. Okay, and now I'll go ahead and share the screen just so we can get that done. It may take a little bit for this to load on my notorious Vashon low bandwidth system, but it looks like you can now see it.
Yeah, we can all see it just fine here too.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. Just as an introduction to the work that you're looking at, in 2018, more than 700 islanders and more than 100 island business owners signed a petition asking Puget Sound Energy to shut down their coal plants. On May 7th of 2019, with much prompting from Vashon-Maury residents, Governor Inslee signed the Clean Energy Transformation Act into law, which calls for zero coal-based electricity by 2025 and net zero carbon electricity by 2030. In 2022, knowing that our electric utility will be required to provide 100% clean electricity by 2045, attention turned to supporting the environment and climate goals of Vashon and Maury Island organizations. So in conjunction with leaders of the whole Vashon project, the Vashon-Maury Environment and Climate Agenda was created. And that is what we're looking at tonight. This evening, we'll read into the council record the motions contained in the 2024 agenda. These motions will be on the December council meeting agenda for discussion and an accept or reject vote. Discussion of the merits of the motion will take place at that time. I'm happy today to answer any questions about the process used to create these motions. And of course, we'll read those motions now. Okay, there are 4 of these motions. Number 1, Vashon-Maury Islanders place a high priority on protecting the environment and addressing the climate crisis. The Vashon-Maury Community Council requests our Washington state legislators approve legislation to urgently fund, plan, and implement projects to replace the energy, transportation, and irrigation services currently provided by the lower Snake River dams as part of a comprehensive strategy to restore a healthy river, protect salmon and orcas from extinction, and uphold our nation's promises to Northwest tribes. This legislative action is a priority goal of Save Our Wild Salmon.
So I would like, Kevin, to have each of these motions seconded, but when the discussion comes, we'll discuss all of them, whoever wants to talk about each one. Otherwise, it could go on far too long. So I'm looking for someone who, okay, Ben Carr has seconded the first motion. So we can continue.
Thank you, Ben, and thanks, Diane. Okay, motion number 2, the leading paragraphs are essentially the same for each motion, so I wouldn't read those unless you require it. But these legislative actions are priority goals of the Vashon Climate Action Group. Item 1, remove specific impediments to community solar projects and assure that new rooftop solar owners receive full credit for the energy that they generate. Number 2, establish a method for energy labeling of existing residential buildings, which could be used as a condition of sale. Number 3, major industry groups have stated their desire to weaken Washington's landmark cap and invest law known as the Climate Commitment Act. They intend to do this during the 2024 legislative session. We urge our legislators to reject those proposals, as they will only serve to delay the ongoing transition to cleaner and less expensive transportation fuels based on renewable electricity. Any legislative relief from high fuel prices should focus on enhancing clean transportation options for those in our state with the greatest financial need. And the last item is to protect Washington state consumers from funding the political activities of their electric utilities. So we should call for a second.
Yes, I would like a second on this motion, if anyone would like to. Okay, Deborah Gusson has seconded this motion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's see, these legislative actions are priority goals of Zero Waste Vashon and the Vashon Fix-It Cafe. Item number 1, assure producers are financially responsible for the life cycle of their products and comply with the minimum recycled content criteria. Number 2, assure consumers have the right to fix their own devices by expanded access to manufacturers' parts, tools, and information.
Is there a second on this motion? Okay, John Affolter seconded that one.
Thank you, John. Okay, these legislative actions are priority goals of Solutionary Rail, a Project of Backbone campaign in coalition with other rail advocacy groups forming the Rail Can't Wait campaign. Redirect Climate Commitment Act funds for rail projects implemented by 2030 to 2035. Revise the rail curve over I-5 near DuPont and build the 110-mile-an-hour track for Amtrak Cascades. Plan for barge replacement on the Lower Snake River in southeast Washington, with a, this should be a, let's see, best cost analysis of short line rail between Pasco and Rosalia due in December of 2024. Revive passenger rail service from Seattle and Auburn to Ellensburg, Yakima, Tri-Cities, and Spokane. Electrify rail yards by replacing dirty diesel locomotive engines. And enhance Washington's rail planning and management capacity by creating a dedicated rail office and a rail advisory group.
Okay, is there a second for this motion? Okay, Ben Carr seconded that one.
Okay, very good. So that brings me to the end of the motions as been received by multiple groups on Vashon-Maury Island, as we stated in the reading. Let's see, I do want to thank people, particularly the council, for your guidance on this, as well as the opportunity to present these island organizations' goals and objectives. I'm happy to answer any questions people have, particularly about how we arrived at the motions that you saw today.
And before we do that, I'll just explain to folks that the community council, to make sure that everybody has a chance to weigh in and think about motions that come before the council, we propose a motion and we second it at one meeting, but we don't vote on it in the same meeting unless it's an emergency. We give the community a whole month to think about this, come back, and we'll actually vote on these at our next meeting in a month. But we can discuss them now. So if people have questions about them, they can certainly discuss them now.
Hey, Kevin, this is Ben.
Hey,
So
Ben.
I don't know if you were able to put up the rail recommendation again. A few of those things, while you're doing that, a few of those things look tremendously expensive. Is there any part of this where we are making a recommendation about where the funds should come from for all these new projects?
That's a great question, Ben, and I don't have the answer to that, but I will make sure to that our Solutionary Rail team is aware that they should be prepared with that information, and we will do everything we can. I should be able to add that content to the addendum online, which is designed to have additional information in support of the motions that people have proposed.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think everyone would love for rail to be fast and effective and clean. I think if you get any static, it's probably going to be from people saying, how are you going to pay for it and how much more in taxes do I have to pay? So it'd be nice to have some explanation about where that money's coming from.
Yes, I understand. Thanks for that feedback. And the group may not have gotten to that point, but we'll see what information they can provide, because I agree that's a really good question.
Okay, I can't see who else might have their hands up, Kevin. So if you could stop sharing your screen, I'll be able to see
Yes.
the other people.
Yeah, and I actually don't see any hands up on Zoom at this point.
Okay. And anyone in the room? Oh, yes, we do have one.
Hi, Stacia Kearns. Thank you so much for your work on those. I definitely want to see doing all we can on the clean energy transition and addressing climate. Just also a note about the rail idea there. I'm curious if there's been any consultation with labor on that. I have a friend who used to work for BNSF, and I know that the rail workers are constantly facing worker health and safety issues, and electrifying the rail yard is certainly an air quality improvement that could be good for workers. But I know they're also facing a lot of pressure to move to one worker crews on the trains. And, that's purely a profit motive from the companies and is a pretty big safety risk in my mind for both the workers and for the rest of us who might be in proximity to those rail lines. So it might just be an interesting opportunity to work together, maybe in the advisory council that's being proposed, to make sure that labor is that there's some alliance happening with labor around that.
Yes, thanks for that. I don't know all the members of the Rail Can't Wait Coalition, but let me confirm that there is a relationship there with labor. I fully expect that there is. I know that the Rail Can't Wait does include folks who have worked on the rail lines and have a deep expertise and a work history there. So at a minimum, there are folks on the coalition who have that lived work experience that you cite.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands raised anywhere, so we're going to move on. Thank you very much, Kevin. And
thanks for the time.
Anybody who's on the mailing list got links to all this information. So if you want more information, it would be a good idea to get on our mailing list. It's on our website. You can sign up on our website. Okay, next on the agenda, update on the Fauntleroy Ferry Terminal with Justin Hirsch.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I'm Justin Hirsch. I'm the chair of our Ferry Advisory Committee for Vashon. That does not mean I work for WSF. That means I'm a Vashon resident who's just a volunteer here. So don't scream at me. Also in that role as chair of the FAC, I sit on the community advisory group for the Fauntleroy Terminal project. So that's one of 3 advisory groups for that project. You also have a technical advisory group and an executive advisory group. And Councilmember Mosqueda, if you're still on, you're going to have a seat on that EAC. So we'll look forward to seeing you there. The news item here is that WSF, and I'm going to switch to my notes here. So WSF is planning to replace the existing ferry terminal at Fauntleroy. The existing terminal is built on old creosote piles, which are environmentally toxic and will not last forever. Also, the existing terminal is not up to current seismic standards, so there is a need to replace that terminal in some form. The question is how. So I really see this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to build the ferry terminal that we truly need. A terminal's got to have enough capacity to handle 1.5 times the vessel size. So 120 some odd cars, 124-ish cars fit on an Issaquah class ferry, functionally a little less, maybe 120. We're looking at a terminal, hopefully, that can handle 186 cars. That kind of capacity is going to go a long way towards fixing a lot of the problems that we have on the triangle route. That's the Fauntleroy Vashon Southworth Ferry Triangle route, right? So it's not the only cause of schedule delays, right? But I'm saying pretty clearly that it is a necessary but not sufficient solution to many of our ferry problems. So the discussion is going to be around what exact design of a ferry to build. And Diane, I have some slides available, and if there's any way that I could screen share those, that would be phenomenal. I promise I will not go over my 5 minutes. Okay, looks like I'm a co-host now. So I'm going to switch to Zoom, and we're going to share screen. And we're going to pick the right screen. And we're going to share that. Okay, does that work? You guys see alternative B1 here?
Yes, we can see it.
Sorry to scroll up. I'm actually going to go. So this presentation is publicly available, and I'm happy to, I think I can upload a file to the chat, and we can definitely make this available. So you see like a rough I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you see a rough diagram there of the existing dock structure, right? So you've got a terminal building, a trestle, a transfer span, the wing walls here that the boat lands on, and then dolphins, which are not animals, but are big pieces of metal offshore, right? So the alternatives are in 3 categories, A, B, and C. Category A has some sort of sub-alternatives, and category B has some sub-alternatives also. So alternative A right there looks an awful lot like what we basically have today. It would hold 76 vehicles on the terminal, which is grossly insufficient, and 110 vehicles would be planned for Fauntleroy Way. I don't think that's a great plan, and I don't think we should ever support this option or anything in alternative A. So I'm gonna
Justin, how many fit on the current dock?
About 76. I mean,
so it's basically the same size.
Yeah, so 4 lanes of 20 roughly, with 2 of the lanes being a little shorter. So I'd say 76 is probably about it. When we start getting into the alternative, the B alternative, so this is B1, we're looking at 155 vehicles on the terminal and 31 vehicles on Fauntleroy Way, 5 620-foot holding lanes. There's an important part of this diagram here. Can you guys see my cursor? Okay, so you see this curved structure in green here. Excuse me. So that's called the scour hole. So that is created by prop wash from the propellers as they're slowing down the boat, right? They come up to the dock, pump a bunch of water in the other direction in order to slow down the boat and give us a nice safe landing in Fauntleroy every time, hopefully. So that definitely has an environmental impact, right? And so a big part of the discussion here is if we're building a longer dock, we can't build a wider dock. That part of the discussion's already been settled. If we're building a longer dock, we actually will be able to push the boat keep the boat out into deeper water. Well, we won't see that scour hole effect in the shallower water. That's actually, even though there's additional overwater coverage there, it's great environmentally because not having that prop wash up against the eelgrass bed should allow some eelgrass to regrow there. And then, of course, there's Fauntleroy Cove right in here with the stream that enters out. There are actually wild spawning salmon in Fauntleroy Cove that rely on that eelgrass. So there's another view of that alternative B1, so you get a better sense of it, right? Get just a touch wider here, a little bit wider here because you got some extra lanes. I'm going really fast here because I know we don't have all the time in the world. So we got alternative B2, which I hope is a likely outcome. I'm going to get to alternative C and talk about why I think it's great in just a second here. So you can see the plan for the different holding lanes, right? 4 620-foot holding lanes and 2 300-foot holding lanes, and then the remaining 31 vehicles on Fauntleroy Way Southwest. I would strongly prefer not to have any, not to rely on any holding on Fauntleroy Way Southwest, but 155 vehicle capacity on the dock is enough to fill an Issaquah class ferry. And that means that that loading the boat doesn't have to wait on ticketing. Okay. The other major advantage to a longer dock like this is that when you're unloading the ferry, that traffic that's unloading will be able to be contained more in these 2 discharge lanes here, so that loading won't have to wait for unloading. Loading won't have to wait for all of the cars to get off the dock. Does that make sense? And actually, it's discharging the ferry that's doing an awful lot to screw up our schedule. Because right now, there's no traffic control right here. I think anyone who's ever had to drive a car off the ferry, particularly if the traffic officer is not there, knows the frustration of having to wait for whatever traffic happens to be coming up and down Fauntleroy Way to be able to unload the boat, right? That traffic on Fauntleroy Way delays the entire triangle route system. It delays the entire vessel route. In all of these discussions, there's talk about a traffic light here. I got to say that I think a traffic light is absolutely necessary. I'm going to scroll to the next few alternatives. So there's a aerial depiction of what B2 might look like. We've got B3, which is structurally similar, a little different. 3 620-foot holding lanes and 2 300-foot holding lanes. Then we have what I think should clearly be the island's choice, which is alternative C. 186 vehicles on the dock, 5 620-foot holding lanes and 2 300-foot holding lanes. We've got the longest possible length there, which is going to facilitate unloading the boat quickly. We've got the longest distance between the vessel and the prop wash and the existing eelgrass beds, which should help that regrow. We've got some additional room with the toll booths there. We've got dedicated bicycle and motorcycle lanes for people who want to roll on and off the ferry. And I think that's, given that many of us choose to get on and off the boat that way, I think that's definitely something we need to encourage structurally. There has been some discussion in all of this on implementing good to go technology for toll booths. Obviously there was a study from the UW a number of years ago that recommended that. While it might sound great to eliminate tolling out of the toll booths, just keep in mind that that's going to require a complete restructuring of the fare structure, right? Because good to go doesn't charge passengers. So if they're going to give up that passenger revenue, they got to make it up somewhere, and that's going to come out of car fares. Probably result in a pretty substantial increase in car fares. So, the idea, let's not get lulled into the idea of automation here and think that it's all going to solve all of our problems. That kind of automation is going to make our car fares significantly more expensive. They haven't said that.
Justin, you're going to have to wrap it up pretty quick here, okay?
Okay. I will wrap up by putting some links in the chat where people can get some more information on this, if I can get to the chat. So WSF maintains a website, project website. So that's the first link in the chat. A lot of this information, as well as recordings of the different advisory groups, are in the chat there. Most importantly, there is some pretty substantial opposition to any kind of expanded ferry terminal from the Fauntleroy Community Association and from the Fauntleroy members of the Community Advisory Group. So we, as an island, need to be really active in advocating for the ferry terminal that we need. This literally is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get the ferry terminal that we need. They're not going to redo this project anytime in the next 40, 50, 60 years. This is our shot right here. Last link I'll put in the chat is going to be our amazing Vashon-Maury Community Council ferry resources page, which has a lot of, not that one, which has a lot of amazing ferry resources, including schedule and service restoration report and all that stuff. Okay, that doesn't want a copy, so I'll get that done in a second. I think that's as much as I can say in this brief period of time, and I could take a couple questions, Diane, if we had time for it.
Yeah, we do. Just a couple, though. Any questions at over here?
I just have one question: is what is the additional length that walk-ons would have to walk from Fauntleroy? Does that impose any impediment for ADA issues and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There would definitely be some additional length. So right now, if I'm looking at it, so the alternative C, 1,105 feet in length in total, and that's from the beginning of the terminal at the Rapid Ride bus station there, the southbound Rapid Ride bus station. If I look at alternative A, we're looking at 850 feet, so roughly 300 feet. Sorry, yeah, roughly 300 feet is the additional length.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, we have one more. Oh, is there someone online who has a question? I'm not seeing any hands up there. So, go ahead, Jenny.
Well, I'm wondering, why would there be objections from the Fauntleroy community? Wouldn't it lighten the load on Fauntleroy Way Southwest? That seems contradictory.
Yeah, I think it absolutely would lighten the way on Fauntleroy Way Southwest. And quite frankly, I mean, there have been road rage incidents. People have pulled firearms on each other. There's fist fights. There's all sorts of like Mad Max kind of stuff happening on Fauntleroy Way because of the like absolute madness of people trying to commute. Honestly, I've met privately with some of the representatives from Fauntleroy, and I think, the objections that I heard were literally like, when I look out my window, I want to see more water and less dock, and we have to live here, and we don't necessarily want a terminal. I have tried to argue that I think there is a possibility to make a terminal beautiful, and if you look at the WSF terminal in Mukilteo, they've done an amazing project there. I think that kind of amazing project is absolutely possible at Fauntleroy, and more importantly, when vehicles are on the dock over the water and not on Fauntleroy Way Southwest, the impacts to the community from the ferry terminal are going to be minimized. I think they're going to see that eventually, and I get a sense that WSF wants to build a larger, more functional terminal. But if we are not loud and vocal, and I really want to encourage people to get on that website, look at the alternatives, look at that email address that I posted in the chat there, and get on that email address and just let them know, hey, we need a working terminal. We need a terminal that's going to meet the needs of the entire route. I think that's what's going to do it. I don't think the entire West Seattle community is necessarily opposed to an expansion, but I think that there are some very vocal community participants who live right in Fauntleroy Cove there who are pretty opposed to it.
Justin, could you tell us that email address, because the folks in this room don't have access to chat? Sure. So it's a little long. So I will read it out. Fauntleroy, TERM,
PROJ at wsdot.wa.gov.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Fauntleroy, EERM.
T is in Tango. T is in terminal.
TERM for Fauntleroy Terminal Project, right?
That's right. So it's an
PROJ.
abbreviation of Fauntleroy Terminal
Yeah.
Project.
At wsdot.wa.gov.
That's right. Fauntleroy Term Proj at wsdot.wa.gov.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I'm sorry, we have to keep moving on. Sorry, Linda, you're gonna have to raise your hand sooner.
Linda, you can send me a message in the chat.
Okay. I can find it on my iPad.
Okay. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's really good to have those diagrams, and we'll be sure that that information is available on the website. Okay, next on the agenda, this is our annual meeting, and we have Ben Carr will share with us the 2023 council accomplishments.
Sure. So we wanted to talk a little bit, as we talk about people getting involved with the council, we wanted to talk about what we've been doing over the last year. Well, a few things. So, and I could probably make a copy of this, put this in the chat, but when it comes to the community needs survey, hey, we rallied sort of record-breaking numbers in terms of response rates above and beyond any other county or area of the county on that community needs list survey, so that when the county comes up and develops its biennial budget, it will be hearing our voices loud and clear. So that's awesome. We have succeeded in getting garbage cans installed and emptied regularly around Vashon Town as part of a 6-month pilot program. We helped co-sponsor a King County Community Council Candidates Forum that included Council Member Mosqueda, so Islanders could meet their aspiring local leaders. We hosted, of course, the Seattle Indian Health Board representatives so that they could answer community questions about the new planned inpatient treatment facility on the island. We helped increase traffic safety on the island by persuading King County to make certain changes, so reducing speeds in certain areas, increasing signage, increasing speed measuring devices, and that all came out of concerns from Islanders. So we were able to convey those and get King County to make changes. We welcomed, of course, King County representatives, as we do at every one of these meetings, as we did tonight, from agencies throughout the county. Obviously, tonight we heard about septic tanks. We've heard about housing, about public safety, about protecting the environment, about transportation options, and those all arise out of issues raised by Islanders. So we've been able to channel those comments through the county. We helped advise the county on the Vashon-Maury sub-area plan for 2024, pushing them to reject the implementation of that fee in lieu proposal that would allow developers to get out of building affordable housing if they just paid a fee to the county. So again, we recommended against that. We issued a resolution supporting the legislation in Olympia that protects the environment and the climate, 5 bills of which that we recommended passed this last session. We grew our voting membership and our mailing lists by almost 30% over last year. So that's great. And kudos to Diane, especially for that. And then, of course, we celebrated Strawberry Festival with y'all and hosted a table answering Islanders' questions about the work that we're doing on the island. And of course, we had the most delicious strawberry shortcake at the festival. So that is a short list of some of our accomplishments over the last year.
Thank you very much for that, Ben. I really appreciate that.
John's going to add.
And also, I'd also like to add that we became a member of a coalition of unincorporated King County councils, and that's a big step for us. So we're now engaged in activities around all unincorporated communities in the county.
Yeah, and that focuses a lot on sort of land use and expansion and building throughout the county.
So now we have our 2023 budget and 2024 budget proposal. John Affolter is going to, our treasurer is going to do that, and I am going to share my screen and pull up that spreadsheet.
Okay, we started off the year with a balance carried over from 22 of $2,385. We had a normal amount of expenditures, and our overall expenses for 23 were $3,346. We had grant money coming in that came to $6,000. The Strawberry Festival netted us $861. We had some cash donations at our tabling of $30. But at the end of all of that, our accounting for the end of this year is $5,930. Is this what you sent me? Okay, let's go off of you. I'll just go off the screen. So let's get back. We collected the 6,861 plus 30. That's all of our income for the year. I can't.
You're at 2023. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. 6,000. Okay, that's
scroll down so I can
there. It
see
is
the
the
numbers.
6891. Yep.
Anyway, we ended up at the end of the year, we're at $6,608 that we're going to carry over into next year, which is probably the important thing. And it's good in that last year we carried over a little over $2,000. So those two King County grants really helped us put together a much more secure budget for carrying into 2024.
John,
any questions? Okay.
Okay, you want to see 2024?
Those are one-time grants, though, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll move to 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
Ready?
A little bit more conversation on those grants. The way the King County works with public granting is that once we're in the books as having accomplished projects and gotten rewards for, that puts us on another level where we can access other grant possibilities. And because we've established a track record, we have a good opportunity for continuing in some form as the grants come. We now have established a reputation, so that's also good.
Right. So now we'll move to 2024, and when we're done with this, what's going on with that? Okay. For the budget, when we're going to be voting on this next month, we're going to have a motion to accept it by the community, our members, and we will then vote on it next month.
So as you can see, we're carrying over $6,608, and these are all projected costs that we have been occurring over the last couple of years. So there shouldn't be much change, but there may be some changes. For instance, one of the flexible parts here is our board insurance. We have to re-up every year, and that insurance is on the open market, so it may go up, may go down. I would suspect, if anything, it goes up, considering the way things are. But when we finish up at the end of next year, end of 2024, we should have a balance of about $4,740. So we're in pretty good shape.
So are there any questions from anybody about the budget, the proposed budget? Yes.
The grants that were the one-time grants, can you just give us a snapshot of what the deliverables were for those?
Yeah, the first one was the Allen Painter grant, and it was a grant of $1,000 that is awarded to communities who have special projects they want to present to the community that has some inherent benefit to the community. And our project was to we were asking for $1,000 to fund us purchasing an awning and tables and presentation things so that we could go out into the public and have events where we inform the community. And our strawberry festivals where we first sort of launched that. The second one was a partnership with the county, the $5,000 one with the county. It started off as a $2,500 project, but as it progressed, they offered us an option of going for $5,000 with some extra things that they required us to do. But the basic idea was they were using us to present to the public questionnaire about what our needs are. And so we did some tabling and some what would you call it, public service out in the community, and got that taken care of for the county. And so they're giving us $5,000 for providing that service.
Okay, any questions on the Zoom, folks there? I'm not seeing any hands raised. All right. So I would entertain a motion to have this budget, this 2024 budget, proposed budget, move second to, I need a motion actually to approve it and then a second. So could someone please make a motion to approve this budget? Thank you, John. John has made the motion and Deborah has seconded it, and we will vote on it next month. Okay. So next on our agenda, we had introduction and vote on our new board member, Lillian Abella. But Lillian has let us know she's not quite ready to join the board because of previous commitments that she had and training that she realized was actually takes place at not Pacific time, but Mountain time, which meant that she could not actually come to our meetings for a while until this very important training session she's in was completed. So we're going to meet next week and talk about what's going to happen there. Okay, so it's holiday time. And so last year, everyone will remember what a mess the whole package delivery thing was. And I have good news for you, everybody, on a couple of fronts. I've been told that we have a full capacity right now of staff at our post office, which is very helpful. And we also, you might not know about this, but one of our community members works at Amazon and was able to get Amazon to stop sending anywhere near as many packages to the post office and use other methods to get packages to the island, which helped immensely. That was Erica Turnbull who did that. And there was an article in the Beachcomber about her and her work. So we should be in pretty good shape. There's still going to be a meal train set up for people who want to provide meals for the postal delivery folks, because it's going to be, it'll be very busy, as it always is. And a lot of folks come from off island and to do their work. And there's also they won't stop you if you want to bring treats or things into the post office across the counter. So those are a couple of things to do. And if you're on our mailing list, you have received a link to a Google Doc that gives you lots of ideas. So there's still a couple of key things that all of us can do if we haven't yet. And that is to have those reflective address signs, the blue and white address signs that our fire and rescue department creates for the island, very visible on your property, so that at night when people are trying to find your property and find your address, it really shows up so you can get your packages delivered. And if you are finding that you are having packages that aren't fitting in your mailbox, get yourself a bigger mailbox and get those things out of the view of people driving past and out of the weather. So those are a couple of key things that folks can do. And Melvin has a question.
Yeah, not a question, a comment.
Comment.
Mail theft is not over. On Old Mill Road where I live, there were about 4 or 5 mailboxes on Monday that were rifled and packages were taken and mail was thrown around on the side of the road. So I reported it to the police, so they know about it, to the sheriffs. So it's still happening. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Melvin. Yes, that is still a concern. And that was if our sheriff department had shown up tonight, we would have talked about that briefly, but we can definitely talk about that at our next meeting. And there is on that Google document, there is our phone numbers to call and people to report it to both the United States Postal Service as well as the Sheriff's Department. Okay.
It may not be a bad idea to also put treats in the mailbox. I'm sure a mail worker working late, open up that box and get a couple cookies wouldn't hurt.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on the Postal Service? Okay, we're good for that. Now we have community announcements. Are there any community organizations or people want to mention anything that's coming up for their organization? Yes, we have one.
Hello, everyone. I'm just want to introduce myself. I'm the new president of Mukai Farm and Garden. Just became president in August, a steep learning curve. So realize that it's important to get out, be part of the community and be active in the community. So just wanted to say hello. The other thing is that we're hiring for an executive director position. Currently, we have an interim director. And so we do have it posted in Beachcomber and other publications. But if you want to go to our website, mukaifarmandgarden.org, there's more information about that. And lastly, on December 10th, we're having a winter open house. Starts at 4:30 to 7:30. We'll have food, drinks. Hopefully the holiday lights will be up. So love to see you guys there. It's at Mukai Farm Garden, the house. Oh, on the 10th. Yeah.
Any other community announcements? Anybody on the Zoom call would like to mention something that's coming up or they'd like to have folks know about? No? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
James and the Giant Peach is playing at the VCA, and a number of the kids. My daughter's not in it, but all of her friends are. So it sounds like it's going to be fun for kids this weekend.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, let's see what's next here. All right, we have open discussion. Jenny Bell has something she'd like to talk about tonight.
Is everyone good with me sitting down? Thank you very much. This is a marvelous forum for us to speak and get word round about really important issues. So I'm very grateful to you all for the energy that you put in to create and maintain this. Thank you. In summary, what I'm going to be talking about tonight is 3 things: PSE, save our trees, protect our property rights, and in particular PSC's actions around easements. So the easiest way to give you the information is to tell you the story of what occurred with me. I've owned my home on Vashon for more than 20 years. I've been commissioner on the board of Water District 19 for 4 years, and I'm active in community. A few years ago, I came home from holiday to find PSC had gone behind my fence line onto my property and cut one of my 120-foot fir trees down to about a quarter of its size. I'd say it was even more dramatic than that, but I was understating. So hopefully you can see that. A very dramatic chop, absolutely on my property, absolutely on over the fence line. They literally had to jump the fence to do it. So at that time, I didn't think I had a lot of redress. I just didn't know what to do. So I just tried to remain calm. However, this week, another issue has occurred which has sparked the flame. And the key question that I have for the community is, why should these things matter to all of us? What is worth fighting for and standing up for? For me, the trees are kind of quintessential to my Vashon experience. The tree that was cut down has a larger circumference than that table there. Like literally 2 people can't get their arms fully around it. This week or last week, without any notice, this is part 2 of what occurred to me. Without any notice by mail to me, nothing on their website about any project, PSC directed a real estate acquisition firm to call me and others on our street to have me sign over an easement over my property to PSC. Now, many people don't even know what easement means, but it's basically giving over your property rights, your private property, and PSC has roughly the same abilities that you do and rights over that piece of property. The particular danger is trees, what they can do to your trees. So we really need to know, all of us, what an easement is. So primarily I'm here also on the basis of information, so that people who may not be aware of this may now be aware of what happens regularly on the island, because many people say, oh yeah, I've got an easement, but how they actually get the easement, this is the process. And to me, very clearly, it was an incredibly bullying process where the real estate person called me up and said, I want you to sign an easement like your neighbors have. So I found that extraordinary, just mind-boggling. On my private number, I was like, is this a scam? Is this, who are you? What? So yes, the easement really means that they have the same rights as I do to the section of property that they want to take. My trees won't know the difference between me and PSC. It's very, very important to me that private property rights be maintained so that I can steward the trees on my land. Like, I feel very personally responsible for them. So what's the solution to this? Well, number one, everybody should know that this occurs. Number two, everybody should know what an easement is. Number three, most people will recognize that that's uncivilized behavior. That's how I see it. It's a foundation. Our property rights are a foundation of our civilization as we know it. I have a petition. The key solutions that I have are that we need unity in community, particularly when we're dealing with a monopolistic Goliath like PSC, where each of us doesn't feel like we're a minuscule individual trying to battle a tsunami. We must join together in order to be able to have any hope dealing with this. So to bring it, I'm sure, like, have people noticed here trees that are just topped rather than trees that are like, the power lines are like this, and it's the upper power lines that are the issue for sparks, etc. And they top the tree down here. Anyone who knows anything about gardening or trees knows that it thickens and increases the foliage where you chop it. It's like if you want a nice hedge, you chop it, it gets thicker and fatter. So the maintenance costs are actually increased at that line. And instead, it should have been pruned so that it could continue to grow tall. So what control do we have over the way they do business? It's very important for us to understand that PSE is a fully private company. Many people just sign because they believe that PSE is government. It is not. We are signing over rights to a private company. Very important. Very important. The two bodies responsible to assist us on a government level for oversight, watchdogs, are the Attorney General's Office, which is responsible for monitoring business practices, and number two, the Utilities Trade Commission. Now, many people on Vashon are already familiar with these bodies and with PSE negative business practices. I know many friends who have been involved in the issues regarding the natural gas plant in Tacoma that some of you might be familiar with. The UTC and the Attorney General's Office needs to be reminded by us as a community that we need them to perform their duty. The Utilities Trade Commission, for example, I spoke with last week, their specific duty is to look after things like this. However, they limit their duty to, I was told, well, we only really help people who need their electricity turned on or had it turned off accidentally. So they limit themselves to that. We need to remind them of their duty. And that's primarily what this petition is for, because even if you think what they're doing is correct, the petition should be signed because they're not, our watchdogs aren't doing their work. They should at least be barking, even if they're on a leash. So I have sent the link to the petition to Diane, and if you'd be willing to post that for the petition.
Be up to the people and our members to. Or if you could suggest a way to make, I was just thinking, gosh, I should have done this online. How do I get direct people to where the petition is if they want to sign it? I could tell you, and I have my properties on 115th, and I have signs there. Yep. And great. So my email is jennybell111, JENNYBELL 111 at protonmail.com.
PROTONMAIL.com. The petition is under ipetitions.com. iPetitions, PETITIONS.com. And it's called, then it's /petition/save our trees no to PSE land grab, with hyphens between all of that. So I really appeal very strongly to all of you to read, hopefully sign, post comments. I'm getting some very good comments. For example, one person has already told me, a lady said, I totally got tricked by PSE into signing the easement. That's how she phrased it. So the stories are coming in, and we really need to respond as a community, or we're completely powerless. So I'd ask you, if in a case like this, often people say, well, you know, I'm not really affected. My trees are far enough back, but if we don't stand together on like a tree as big as that, I'm going to get a picture so I can, from the top, so I can actually work out how old it is. It's decades, possibly more than 100 years old. Absolutely shocking. If they have a practice of, just with me, that level of disrespectful engagement where they wipe out the tree and then they try to bully me into signing an easement, imagine what's happening elsewhere. You can look around the island and see, I'm sure many of you have seen the topped trees and you're like, what's going on? This is the opposite of what should occur. So please read, please sign, and please share.
Well, the other thing.
Yes. Mm. Yeah. And one of the comments that I got that was very powerful in the survey, this is where we're powerful. Like in a survey, people can put in comments. We share our information and our experience. One of the comments was that the UTC has a set of conditions that must be met when dealing with easements and private property, and indicating that these conditions were not met. I mean, things like basic information, like especially this is hard on the disadvantaged people, the financially, the economically disadvantaged, the people who don't have access to information. I mean, can you imagine you're elderly and someone says, sign this. Oh, you're the government, aren't you? Da, da, da. Terrible. Yeah. Just definitely. And I haven't had any, the contact, just FYI, with PSE so far, I think they accidentally sent me the full thread, which was great, because it began with an admittance of how flawed what they did was. It was like, this is a perfect example of... Sure.
Can't hear you, Diane.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Joanne, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you were speaking to me. Thanks. Yeah. I think what you're saying is really important. The whole idea of easements, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but I had about 8 full-grown, huge evergreens cut that protected my property from the road. And it wasn't done by PSE. But when I moved in, I didn't understand what an easement meant. And I'm telling you, the court was just so corrupt in this, and there was a lot of very discouraging things that happened. I really applaud you speaking up, but I also feel that we need to see your information in writing. I can't get your name down and get, I want to be able to communicate with you. And I think people need to be able to easily sign that petition that you've got. And if people have noticed in West Seattle on California Avenue, if at Fauntleroy, you make a left and you head down California towards PCC, I don't have the street names right now, but I did write it down and I'm going to follow up on it. But for about 4 or 5 blocks on the left-hand side, where there's electrical wires, they have completely chopped up trees. I mean, like cut out the whole middle of a huge tree. Anyway, I'd like to speak with you, and I applaud you standing up and speaking up. This is really important, and people need to get that. I mean, I asked for support where I live regarding the trees. Nobody, it's like, it's not affecting me. I don't care. And that's a terrible attitude, really. So anyway.
Thank you for your comments, Joanne.
Yeah.
So I'm going to invite Puget Sound Energy to come to a future meeting, and we can ask questions of them in advance and at the meeting and see what they have to say. And Jenny, you will do some research on what the law actually says about this, right?
So Joanne, the details are all in that petition that you're looking for. And to repeat, it's on ipetitions.com. And if you put in those keywords, save. Oh, great. Okay, cheers.
I'd like to just say that, on the west side of the art center, it looked to me a few years ago like they were going to paint a mural on there, a nice painting on there. It would have made that building look a lot better. And then sometime during the COVID years, they painted the whole wall white, and they put up that neon sign that says abolition is. Who did that? And what do they want to abolish?
I don't have an answer to that question. It's a rhetorical question. Okay. Well, you could ask them. You could ask them. It's their building. You can ask them. All right. So our next meeting is going to be Thursday, December 21st. And again, on Zoom in the Land Trust building. We are going to have the King County Regional Homeless Authority here with us at that meeting. And we are also going to have and hear from briefly the winners of our local Vashon elections as our 2 main things that we're going to do at our next meeting. So thank you all very much for coming. We are finishing up here and really appreciate the participation. Tell your friends that we do have a community council now. And if you come, you are going to learn a lot about things that you wouldn't learn otherwise about living on this island. So please do that. Okay. Meeting adjourned. See you next month.
Thank you, Diane. Diane, this is Dave Vogel.